Hi guys, this is Katherine Sumrall with Keller Williams Realty Southwest Associates with Real Estate with Katherine. And I am coming here to you today to introduce and continue on this conversation series. A little bit about myself. I have been in the Durango real estate market serving the community for the past 7 years. That includes over 130 families served. And this conversation series was born out of this need that I have felt to rise to the occasion, not only as your real estate partner and as your community partner. So with that, I do have our guest speaker here today. That is First Southwest Bank. First Southwest Bank is a preferred and express SBA lender, and they specialize in SBA loans. They're really leading the charge in bringing these resources to our community in Southwest Colorado. Sherry Warner is the Chief Development Officer there, and so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sherry.
So I've been finding creative ways to bring access to capital for almost 30 years to entrepreneurs and business owners. And we are one of the leading SBA lenders in the state of Colorado, as well as one of the USDA business and industry lenders. And we specialize in working and navigating through government guaranteed programs, as well as programs that provide risk mitigation tools to the bank, which SBA is one of the top programs to do that. And we are, I believe, one of the leaders in utilizing the USDA's PPP, or I'm sorry, the SBA's PPP program, which is the Paycheck Protection Program. And the leadoff was, what are some of the biggest questions that are out there surrounding this program? And I would say, one, there's a misconception that it is just a loan. It is basically a loan that becomes a grant if you meet the eligibility criteria of the program. And the second thing is that a lot of people have a lot of confusion around whether or not sole proprietors or self-employed individuals are eligible to utilize the program. And that is in large part because there's not a lot of real clear guidance from the US or from the SBA around that particular topic. And we are hopeful that they will come out with more of that soon. And until they do, it's really left up to the lender's interpretation around those types of businesses. But generally speaking, 1099 individuals, basically that's what we consider self-employed individuals who receive 1099 income from other organizations, are eligible in of themselves to apply for these loans. I think that was your major question, correct?
Yeah, I would agree. And then to piggyback on that, how, and we may not know the answer, right? And that's okay. How are they determining, or how are they preferencing that determination of average monthly payroll for a self-employed individual that does not pay any wages?
That's a very good question. So if they are a receiver of 1099 income, they're allowing us to utilize those annual 1099 statements for the prior year period. Whereas for a general business loan that does pay primarily employee wages in the form of W-2 income, they want us to use the 12 months preceding the loan periods, which is basically today it would be March through March, or April 1st through the end of March. So from 2019 through the first quarter of 2020, and we have to take a 12-month average and multiply that by 2.5 to determine the loan amount. Versus with 1099 individuals, you're simply going to utilize the 1099 year-end statement or statements. They may have more than one of them or multiple statements, and we can use that for determining the loan size, but the calculation would be the same. We would use that, the total or cumulative total of all the 1099s the individual had, divide that by 12 in order to obtain a monthly average, and then multiply that by 2.5. And that tells you how much of a loan amount they're eligible for.
Okay. And so in relation to, and these questions may overlap, so just to help decipher as we go through, one of the questions that we had is, can an employer claim 1099 workers as a part of their loan amount? Anticipate that is a reflection of that, how that ties together.
Unfortunately, no. And the reason is because those 1099 individuals can also apply for a loan on their own.
Okay. That was one of the other questions that we had a lot, is if we have, can the business apply, and then as well as the contracted employee, 1099 workers, can they apply?
So the answer to that is no. Only one can apply, and because the 1099 workers themselves are eligible to apply, that excludes the business owner's ability to count that as what they consider eligible wage expenses. However, if they're paying themselves W-2 wages, that is eligible, as well as any other employees that they're paying W-2 wages for.
Okay. Okay, thanks for that clarification. And so, yes, so one of the questions here is, applying for the PPPA loan, does that disqualify you from applying for any other assistance program out there?
No, it doesn't. That's something they've recently offered some clarification on, which is if you are applying for an economic injury disaster loan, which is the SBA's disaster loan program, you apply for that directly with the SBA, versus if you're applying for a paycheck protection program loan, you're going to apply directly with a lender for that. And because the two, so the SBA can't necessarily access the lender's systems, and the lender can't necessarily access the SBA systems, they're asking the borrowers or applicants to disclose that information on the PPP application for that, on the application for that program. And what they're asking you to disclose is whether or not you've received any funds from the economic injury disaster loan. And if that is the case, if you have, for instance, many may be eligible for an initial advance on the disaster loan up to $10,000. And if they've received that, and you also get a PPP loan, your forgiveness portion of benefits will be reduced by that amount, whatever it is, how much ever you received under that program. But you can actually apply for both loans as long as they're not for the same purpose. For example, when you applied for an SBA EIDL loan, economic injury disaster loan, you may have applied to cover payroll for periods in March. However, when you're applying for your PPP loan, especially given when they became available, which was just last Friday, you may be applying for payroll periods for the month of April, and therefore that would qualify as a different purpose.
I think that that's really key, and we've had a lot of questions relative to that, is the strategy on how to maximize these resources. And so just to reiterate, you can use those, you can apply to both, and it becomes a matter of strategy of which pay period relative to salary expense can you use those specific funds in.
Exactly.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay, we have some questions rolling in, so I'm going to just kind of pull those in as we go here. So one of the questions are, if we are a Schedule C sole proprietor that does not get 1099s, what in that situation? And the tangible, what lives out is that the owner owns a hair salon, so he has haircut and booth net income, rent income, sorry.
So it really depends on how they're paying themselves. That's kind of the gray area. For sole proprietors, in the original bill, when it rolled out, they did outline acceptable documentation for sole proprietors would be a profit and loss statement for them to be able to provide that to verify how much they paid themselves. However, what's really not clear in the guidance from the SBA is, depending on how they pay themselves. If they pay themselves in owner draws, guaranteed payments, or distributions, the general thought today is that those forms of payment are not eligible, what they call eligible wage expenses. Until SBA provides some further clarity behind sole proprietors and self-employed individuals that may not pay themselves regularly with W-2 wages, it is really a judgment call on the lender's part until they offer up some clarification on that. And that is probably one of the biggest questions that we get.
Awesome. And so what would you suggest or counsel for people in that situation? Would you encourage them to still proceed to apply, or would it behoove them to wait to get that clarification?
I would encourage them to go ahead and apply, just because, you know, they could be behind, depending on which institution they're applying with. They may be behind a long list of people that are already in a queue in front of them. And hopefully, you know, by the time they move up in progression of their application review, there may be some additional guidance that's released from the SBA or the U.S. Treasury around that.
Okay. So another question is coming in and just asking for clarification. If they are using gross income from Schedule C based on total 1099s or net Schedule C after expenses or actual draws? That's
a good question, and it isn't necessarily the income, the business income that is the question. It's what the payments to the owner of the business are. That is what they're trying to get at, because if you think about the program, it's a payroll protection program. So they're trying to protect people's wages and encourage business owners to rehire folks that they may have previously laid off, or at least that's one angle on why the program was created. And so it really has to do with how much the business owner is paying themselves, or at least the way they've laid the program out and the guidance that exists today. That is the thought behind how much you would be eligible for to apply for. So I'm not sure I really answered that question, but only because, again, there's not real clear guidance on that.
Well, I was just about to commend you, because the depth of knowledge that you have, it's very apparent, and these questions are very intricate, and the answers of such are equally that. And so I appreciate you just, again, providing perspective for us, even if we don't have like the exact answer today. I think that was helpful.
And I will just say that, you know, First Southwest Bank is accepting PPP applications from customers and non-customers alike. And if you have a question like that and you are thinking that this is a program that might benefit you and you want to apply, you're welcome to apply with us. And we are happy to answer any questions that you may have around things just like we're talking about here. And you can email us at sba@fswb.com, and we will try to get you the answers if they're available.
Awesome. And I will, for everyone on the call here, I'll make sure that that information gets sent to you as a follow-up, and get that into the chat bar here before I leave the meeting. Okay, so let's see. We want some clarification. I have two separate businesses. Can I apply for the EDL loan for one and PPA for the other and not have that reduction? Is there a...
So technically, you could apply for a PPP loan for both businesses, although the specific terminology that the SBA has used is that each eligible applicant can only apply for one loan. And the way they're defining eligible applicant is if it is a business that where there's no relationship between the two or the three or four businesses that someone may have, that they are entirely independent, that there is no common ownership between the two, meaning that there's no, one company doesn't own a part of another company, that they're entirely separate and they have entirely separate tax ID numbers and or EIN numbers and have separate payroll that is filed under their with their 940 and 941 forms, then they technically could be eligible to receive actually 2 loans. And as far as if one business applies for an EIDL and the other, a different business, applies for the PPP, and you've received funds under the EIDL, it would not reduce your forgiveness benefits on the other loan if those 2 businesses are separate.
Okay. I think, I hope that answers that question. Leading into what is the turnaround time? Kind of lead to, what's the expectation for people?
So what we're telling folks right now, for at least for our bank, and it's different for each lender, and by the way, all banks are eligible to participate in this program. Some are choosing not to. I believe our bank and one other bank in the Durango area are actually the only ones accepting applications from non-customers. And I don't want to quote who the other one is because I honestly can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm sorry, what was your original question?
The turnaround time, like just expectation.
Oh, yes.
And I think that leads great into your process and educating people on what is First Southwest Bank's process, because I think it's very inherently unique and advantageous for everyone to know.
Yes. So what we're saying right now is expect approximately 7 to 10 days. If we didn't have such a large queue, we're currently creeping up on 900 applications, and which is pretty big for our small community bank. But we are well-staffed to handle that volume, and we're working through them in about 7 to 10 days. Now, it really depends on whether or not the applicant has fully completed their application properly, and we do have an online application process. And you can access that application on our website at fswb.com. And it is a fully automated process. So it will walk the applicant through all the fields of what they need to complete and all the information that's required for them to upload. And presuming that they've done that all properly, when we get to it in the queue and review it for underwriting, it should sail through pretty quickly. The one thing that I've seen that has just delayed the process by maybe a day or 2 because somebody has to touch it and reach out to the applicant to either get clarification, get additional documentation, or correct a form that may not have been completed properly. That has delayed the process maybe a day or 2, depending on the response time of the applicant.
Okay. And that's really good insight. And I think you touched on a couple of things I want people to really be cognizant of. Is your online process is the reason why you guys are putting through a volume of 900 loans.
Yes. And by the way, the closing and the funding piece is also completely electronic to honor, our social distancing measurements that are in place today. We have created an entirely electronic process. So you can expect to fill out your application electronically, receive communications electronically or by phone, as well as when it comes to the closing, you will receive your loan documents via email. You will execute them with an e-signature, return them back, and your funds will also electronically be deposited into an account that you direct.
That's awesome. And for those that are listening, and I know that we're going to talk about this in the next series, we are bringing Tafoya and Barrett on and Associates to talk through their lane, their expertise to the conversation. And I know a part of that is going to be how to manage the funds, how to keep your bookkeeping to where you can bulletproof the forgiveness process that's going to take place and qualifying that when we get to that point in the loan. If they went online and they had questions as they were filling out the application, what's the best way to maybe get those questions answered in real time, or how would someone go about that if they run into a challenge?
Again, they can send us an email at sba@fswb.com, and we will respond if it's within normal business hours. We do not have a 24-hour customer support number, so if it is outside of normal business hours, we will respond as promptly as we possibly can the very following day.
Awesome. Well, gosh, we went through a lot of content. You are, I mean, like, you are a depth of knowledge, and I really, really appreciate your time. And I know people on this call and the recording are really going to find a lot of value in it. So, you know, I will get the information out, and I'll make sure people post. I'll post for the email and the website. And if there's any last parting words for people as far as advice, what's maybe your one take that you encourage people to consider?
I would just encourage folks to consider the fact that, you know, this is a loan that basically turns into a grant. A lot of people have been adverse to taking on debt because, and rightfully so, and there, you know, a lot of the feedback I've received is that, you know, why would I even consider getting a loan when I can't even pay my employees' wages right now? And the quick answer to that is that it will give you access to capital that you desperately need, and it is forgivable if you follow all the parameters of the program.
Awesome. Okay, Sherry, thank you so much. Gosh, this was really great. Really a lot of valuable content. So I'm grateful for your time, and for everyone on the call, thank you for joining. This will be recorded and posted online on Facebook, as well as likely emailed out. And I'm here for you guys. If you need anything, certainly don't hesitate to reach out to me or Sherry or her team. We're here to serve everybody. So Sherry, I know you got to get going. Thank you. And you guys have an awesome Friday.
All right, you too.
Okay, bye-bye.